Hello, everyone joining us. Welcome. Going to give it a couple of minutes for everyone to jump in to the room. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We're just giving it a couple of minutes, maybe just 1 minute more before we kick off.
While we are waiting, if you want to pop it into the chat where you're from and the state and the practice or whatever you want to share, that would be nice.
We'll kick off in about 30 seconds, I think. All right, I think we're going to kick off, Sean. Ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. It's sure to be an insightful and engaging webinar. We're going to go through how we can unlock the hidden potential in your practice's data. My name is Catherine Lewis. I'll be your host for today's session. I'm a product marketing manager here at Centaur. And for those joining us today who don't know, Centaur is a leading provider of practice management and data analytics software for the dental industry. We are extremely fortunate to have our brilliant Chief Technology Officer, Sean, leading the charge on this topic today. And not only is Sean an absolute tech whiz, but he's also a complete data guru. With his deep expertise, he's going to take us on a journey to explore the vital connection between your practice data and your business strategy. And in our data-driven world, having a solid handle on your data is the key to unlocking significant value for your business. But that does mean having a well-defined data strategy that aligns with and supports your high-level business objectives. So with his wealth of knowledge and experience, I'm going to hand things over to the one and only Sean Perera. Thanks, Sean. Take over.
Thank you, Kath. Hello, everybody. Once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon and dedicating your lunchtime to sit with us. So today we are going to talk about how to unlock the hidden potential in your practice using data and why the key is aligning your business and data strategies. Let's start with a bit about me. I've been working in the Australian dental industry for the last 20 years, and 15 of those years were spent doing dental business analytics, and I'm a data analyst by trade, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Centaur Software. Data. Why talk about data? And why is it so important? So the answer to those questions lies in our consumption of data as a human race. The annual Data Never Sleeps report by Domo talks about what we do in terms of data every single minute of the day. So let's have a look and be amazed at what we do together with our fellow human beings every single minute. So every single minute of the day, 747 stays are booked on Airbnb. And WhatsApp users send 41.6 million messages. Cyber criminals lurking in the background launched 30 denial of service attacks. DoorDash diners placed $122,000 worth of orders, and people send 241 million emails every single minute of the day. And interestingly, fans stream a Taylor Swift song 69.4 thousand times every single minute. And one of the new entrants, ChatGPT, users send 6,944 prompts every single minute of the day. And finally, the average person produces 102 megabytes worth of data. To put that into perspective, back in the day, if you can see my screen or my face here, I used to carry this around back in my uni days, and I felt like I had the whole world in my pocket. This was 1.44 megabytes. So today, the average person fills 70 of these every single minute. So the data in our society has become something almost as important as the air we breathe. So in this landscape of, consuming a lot of data, dental practices are no exception. So in today's discussion, we'll talk about how to converge healthcare and technology to understand the role of data strategy at a dental practice. And with detailed real-world examples, we'll explore how the two strategies can be aligned and look at some important considerations such as data governance, privacy, and ethics in this fast-changing landscape. And then we'll look beyond the dental industry to see how other industries consume data and how they align business and data alignment. And finally, we'll explore a takeaway framework that you can use at your practice to achieve alignment between your data and business strategy. So let's start with business strategy. Kat, I think we should ask a question at this point to see what our viewers doing at their practices.
I'm launching a poll now.
We got a bit of a poll, and while we are talking, please feel free to answer that, and then we'll come back to your results. So what is business strategy? Business strategy can be looked at as a roadmap outlining the future direction, decisions, and actions an organization takes to compete and achieve its goals and stay relevant in the market. So in the context of a dental practice, it might be expanding their patient base, opening new locations, increasing production, increasing treatment plan acceptance, and even improving your patient experience. So the renowned economist Michael Porter defines this as carving a position in the competitive landscape and putting stakes in the ground and winning mind share in the marketplace. So simply put, it is our operational GPS. Kath, how are we looking with the poll, and what are the results?
Yeah, it's very interesting. We have 57% who've answered, now 60%, thank you, who do have a business strategy for their dental practice, and 40% who don't.
Fantastic. That's really good insights. Let's have a look at some examples. We are using two fictional practices, Sydney Dental Lighthouse and Shining Smiles Clinic in Melbourne, for the duration of our webinar. So let's look at Sydney Dental Lighthouse's business strategy. They kept it very high level. So geographical expansion, that's about branching into other Sydney suburbs. Innovative care, introducing cutting edge treatment, considering both technological and clinical advances in the industry. Holistic collaborations, creating collaborations with technology partners as well as other healthcare providers in other modalities. And patient-focused communication, tailoring messages to meet the diverse needs of their patients to ensure clear and effective communication. And finally, delivering exemplary patient journeys. So as I said, this is a very high-level business plan, business strategy, whereas Shining Smiles Clinic Melbourne, they kept it very tangible. They wanted to expand from 3 to 7 chairs within 3 years, bring on 2 pediatric specialists on their roster, increase their digital marketing presence and spend, and increase active patient base by 25% by 2025. And finally, to ensure that every single patient becomes an advocate for the practice through excellent care and communication. As you can see, the business strategy does not always have to be quantitative. There can always be some qualitative elements that form your business strategy. Now, we're moving to data strategy. Again, we have a question. How many of you have a data strategy is the question we'll be asking. If you're not sure what a data strategy is, please do feel free to say so. And we'll explore some of the findings here. I'll keep going. And Catherine, when you have the final results, if you could share with us. So in contrast to business strategy, data strategy is about how an organization identifies, defines, and manages its data. So it involves identifying which data points are critical for the practice and defining how data is collected, whether it's Excel spreadsheets, you're collecting data from your practice management systems, how you're going to store it, how you're going to analyze it. Are you using business intelligence solutions, or most enterprise organizations use data warehousing? It's about how to bring that together. And finally, the most important thing is determining how you're going to apply the insights that you find from data in your operational and strategic decisions. Kath, how are we going?
It looks like there aren't any more answers coming through. So we have 23% of the audience saying yes, they have a data strategy, 15% saying no, and unsurprisingly, 62% saying I don't know what a data strategy is.
Great. Thank you. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll have some sort of an idea of what a data strategy is. And if you take one thing away from this, that is what we need, regardless of the systems you are using or you're planning to use.
Most definitely.
So, going back to our definitions, Dharma International defines data strategy as guidelines, thought processes, and methodologies to manage, harness, and leverage data. So in other words, think of it as the rule book for the game of data. So let's have a look at Sydney Dental Lighthouse's data strategy. Once again, they kept it high level. So data source organization was one of them. Organizing the data based on the needs, reporting needs of the practice. Am I getting data from my CRM system? Am I getting data from my financial system, practice management system? So they identified where their data needs to come from to make decisions. And securing, I mean, most people don't realize this. Something that forms a massive part of your data strategy is how you're going to secure that data. So Sydney Dental Lighthouse, they use advanced encryption methods for data protection, emphasizing security and actionable insights. This is a bit of a light one because by this, what they meant was they were open to finding out what the data is saying and being open to change based on those findings. So a practical application of a data strategy could be identifying the increased demand for cosmetic treatment in a particular demographic, let's say 30 to 40 age bracket, and creating tailored packages, targeted packages for that demographic, leveraging that demand. So looking at Shining Smiles Clinic in Melbourne, they again kept it very tangible. They said they wanted to analyze age demographics to anticipate the care needs of their patients and also collect the data systematically on rebooks, retention, and recalls. And finally, they wanted to implement a patient feedback platform to identify the correlation patterns between patient satisfaction rates and new referrals by patients. So your data strategy, again, could take any form. It could be more theoretical or like more suitable for data analysts, or more practical, like we have in our example too, that would be more suitable for the average punter. So with those two behind us, data strategy and business strategy, let's take a look at what we mean by aligning your data and business. So how does one achieve that strategic alignment that benefits the overall business? Alignment in this context refers to the symbiotic relationship between data and business strategy, where data supports business objectives and business objectives guide data collection and usage. So if you have a synergetic alignment between these two strategies, they will drive each other, they will guide each other, driving the business forward. So for instance, if a dental practice's business strategy includes patient retention, then the data strategy might focus on gathering patient feedback, analyzing appointment frequency, or even predicting which patients are at risk of churning. Another example, this is actually a real life example, a practice that had great ambitions of acquiring new patients as a business strategy. They reviewed their new patient sources, marketing spend, average revenue per new patient, average treatment plan conversion rates for a new patient. But as a happy byproduct of analyzing patients, they also analyzed their existing patients. So that gave them some insights, which allowed them to change their business strategy to focus more on existing patients, because they understood that leveraging the existing patient base is a less costly and equally lucrative, if not more, option. So this is another example of business strategy guiding the data strategy, and the findings in the data coming back to steer the business strategy. So this is the symbiotic alignment that we are talking about. So how does one achieve this alignment? There are multiple ways to do this, but let's look at the three main points. Setting joint objectives. That means start by setting joint goals that serve both your data and business strategies. For example, if a practice's objective is to achieve better satisfaction by providing better service, then the data strategy would align with this to collect and analyze patient satisfaction to know exactly what you need to do. And to serve this objective, the business could also, in addition to this, the business could gather data around things that have an indirect correlation with the patient satisfaction rate, such as wait times in the waiting room and even deviation from initial treatment plan estimates. So anything with your industry knowledge that you think would affect the patient satisfaction, you would try and find a way to measure it. And the second point we have here is iterative refinement. I think it applies to any strategy, and in this case, business and data strategies, definitely. We can't be looking at them as static strategies that we set and forget. So we regularly review both strategies to ensure the continued alignment of those two strategies. For example, a practice we know set up an automated 1-hour SMS reminder to reduce no-shows at the practice. 6 months later, they did a review, and then they realized that this change had not made a significant improvement to their no-show rates. So at that point, they went back to the data to see if this is not, pulling the levers, what else is affecting, patients' no-shows, and then were able to take action based on the second round of insights that they got from data. And finally, collaboration. There needs to be collaboration between all parties at your practice, those running the business, and also, most importantly, those working with the data. Because if you are basing business decisions on the story that the data is telling you, you need to make sure the data is consistent, accurate, and up to date. And the reverse is true as well. To collect the right data, the business needs to provide clear guidelines and be transparent with everybody about the objectives and the goals. An example here is if a business wants to increase their marketing budget and track the efficiency of their marketing endeavors, it needs to be communicated to those collecting the data to enter the data correctly, whether you are recording patients' referral sources and tracking revenue per that referral source. It needs to be consistent across the board, regardless of who enters the data. And that is a situation from a practice management point of view as well that we see. Some practices have the same referral source spelled in 5 different ways, and people have just entered something when they were entering the data. So making sure the data is consistent by ensuring that collaboration is quite important. So let's go back to examples. Sydney Dental Lighthouse, if you remember, they had business strategy, a high-level business strategy, and a high-level data strategy. And then they align their 2 strategies by creating operational synergy. In other words, data-driven operations at their practice. They establish a strong foundation by using multiple data sources, practice management system, payroll, and the likes. As a result, they have been able to drive their operations based on the insights from the data and guidance from the business. So they are using the best of the both worlds and basing the in-practice experience on past preferences and the business's future directions, because they wanted to create a boutique type patient experience, and they were able to do that by relying on what the data was telling them. And also they were continually adapting to changing trends like increased demand for late afternoon appointments by extending operational hours. And one of the things they did really well was collaborating for success. So that involved not simply relying on the insights from the data alone, but also using their experience in the dental industry by practice managers' experience in running practices to make sensible but data-driven decisions. Moving on to Shining Smiles Clinic. They are the people who kept everything very tangible. So in this case, they had, all these business strategy ambitions and data strategy. They did data-driven marketing campaigns. They increased their data-driven marketing campaigns, targeting particular demographics. And they had a satisfaction score-based referral program. If a patient rated them 9 or 10, they'd ask the patient if they wouldn't mind referring their friends and family to the practice. And because they had a target of business strategy of bringing on 2 pediatric dentists, and the data strategy was to analyze patient age demographics to anticipate patient needs, they were able to combine it and use it to create targeted pediatric newsletter that increased their credibility in the pediatric dental space. So other examples, let's look at some other very quick examples of strategic alignment between these two elements, one practice wanted to offer personalized treatment plans to improve patient outcomes. So what they did was they looked at their historical data on patient treatment and treatment plans and their outcomes to predict or understand the treatments with the highest likelihood of success for a particular problem. And the next one, this practice wanted to optimize their resource allocation at the practice. So they started monitoring their equipment usage data, chair occupancy rates, staff rosters and availabilities to understand the optimal scheduling patterns and optimal equipment purchasing decisions. And finally, this practice wanted to enhance their patient experience to improve retention and word of mouth referrals. So their data strategy was to survey patients post-visit and analyze the feedback data to identify how they could improve their service, their offerings, and even the practice environment atmosphere. So as you can see, achieving success through alignment of business and data is not very difficult once you have clearly defined your strategies and the desired outcomes. So the end result of this is business success. Now, let's move on to some topics that aren't very exciting, but something that needs to be touched upon. When it comes to data, we cannot just talk about data without discussing the components of data governance and privacy. So what is data governance? Data governance is the management of data availability, relevancy, usability, and integrity to ensure the trustworthiness of your data and its safety. There are three main elements in data governance: quality and consistency, accessibility, and protection. Quality and consistency means the data entered in our systems, regardless of who entered them, is always of the same quality and adheres to the same standard that your practice uses. I'll give you again, from a practice management world, a very simple example. I knew this practice manager who disliked people entering mobile phone numbers in any format other than 4 digits, space, 3 digits, and 3 digits. So that was one of her pet peeves, because the data entry wasn't consistent. Like in this case, it doesn't really matter for data analytics, but if you were to ring up a patient, look up the number, she found that that format worked for everyone else. An example, again, from a general practice example, if the management of the practice decides to enhance the patient experience by recording patients' preferred appointment days and times, so every time you talk to that patient, you only offer them appointments within those parameters, that means every single person that manages data at your practice needs to enter that information. And also for every new patient, as well as existing patient, every visit, because people's circumstances change, to have that confidence that you always have the most accurate, relevant, usable data at your fingertips. And the next one is very important. The patient information access needs to be controlled in such a way that you give access to the people, the right people, to the right data at the right time. And finally, protection. Sensitive information of patients should be secured with every possible measure that you can take to make sure that they're safe from lurking threats on the internet. Let's talk a bit about privacy. Privacy goes hand in hand with data governance. Privacy is all about safeguarding your patient information with a relentless commitment to protecting their patient identities and clinical histories. Let's look at, again, go back to our example. What did Sydney Dental Lighthouse do? They made sure that they entered data in a consistent and in a high quality manner. And their practice manager and senior staff members were even performing some spot checks to make sure the data is consistent. And they abide by all regulations, national and international regulations when it comes to data, which we will touch upon in a minute. And they have a layered access model, as we discussed before. Access is only given to the right people, to the right information at the right time, and access is revoked when they no longer require access to that piece of data. Now, going to Shining Smile Dental Clinic, they adhere to all nationally applied data protection laws, plus Victorian state health laws, as well as GDPR. Their data is stored in a cloud-based system with end-to-end encryption and IP address-based access restrictions. And every staff member joining the practice is not only trained in clinical and operational protocols, but they also undergo specific training in data governance and privacy. So based on that, we've got 3 practical tips for you for ensuring data governance. First one, of course, is abiding by all local and applicable data protection regulations and securing servers, often with encryption, and limiting the access that people have to your data. And finally, ensure all your team members are trained in basic data security principles. On our next page, we have some important regulations and guidelines for Australian dental practices. This is by no means an exhaustive list. We have taken the full list and got some highlights here for you. Australian privacy principles, they are very important. State-based health records legislations, such as Health Records and Information Privacy Act 2002 in New South Wales, and notifiable data breach schemes, guidelines by the Office of Australian Information Commissioner, especially for notification of data breach that could potentially cause serious harm. And finally, Australian Dental Association have policies as well, especially 6.15, dental informatics and digital health, and 5.18, dentistry, privacy and confidentiality. Now, we talked about data governance, which is something that we all must do. And now we're going to talk about ethics around data. So in addition to data governance, there is a code of ethics that we must also adhere to when dealing with data. So it's all about handling data responsibly. So we've got the 3 pillars of commonly used ethics in data. The first one being informed consent. Before collecting any data about your patients, demographic data, clinical data, or even patient feedback data, we need to ask their permission to collect that data and store that data. And the second one is bias and fairness. Those who have recently dealt with Gen AI systems like ChatGPT and the likes may be aware of some major issues that ChatGPT especially experienced at the very beginning, with biases towards, certain genders, certain age groups, or certain ethnicities in data based on how those models were trained. So as a dental practice, we may have, based on what data we look at, there may be some biases in the data. For example, if your historical database consists of more of the elderly people, when you do your analytics for your future planning, it may be biased towards the elderly demographic. So that's something we need to keep in mind and make sure when we make business decisions based on data, we remove that bias and ensure fairness. And finally, when you're collecting patient data, even with their permission, we need to be transparent on how we are going to, what we are going to do with that data, how we are going to use it. Are we only going to use it for the purposes of treating the patient? Or are we going to use this for educational purposes, research purposes, marketing purposes? Or are we even going to build data models based on that data? Because it is the patient's right to know what is happening with their data. And once we have this transparency, the long-term transparency creates a culture of trust, which in turn can make that patient become a part of your data intelligence framework or a landscape. So it is very important to make sure that we abide by data governance rules and also the code of ethics when it comes to data. Now, we are looking at some cross-industry lessons. I think this is the fun part because we looked at some dry topics such as, data governance and ethics. So let's look at what other industries do. Because compared to other industries, the dental sector, both in Australia and internationally, has not been as progressive as other industries. So let's look at 4 other industries: retail, finance, entertainment, and transport. So first, let's look at Amazon. I'm sure we've all had some sort of experience using Amazon, and we've all experienced how they guide you through a specific customer journey based on your browsing and past purchasing patterns. So their business strategy was very simple. Business objective: increase sales through personalized shopping experience. And it was supported by the data strategy by analyzing individual purchasing patterns and browsing histories to recommend products. And then we have a small business example. Electronic store Tech Hub in Brisbane introduced a loyalty program because they were getting hit by online giants. So they wanted to know more about their customers. So the loyalty program helped them analyze and personalize the customer communications, and also to introduce a general loyalty bonus scheme. And the outcome was expanded customer base despite all these offers and promotions from online retail giants. Let's look at the finance sector. Visa, they're known for their data analytics prowess. So they use real-time data to analyze billions of transactions to spot and stop suspicious activity instantly, safeguarding the funds of their customers and ensuring the trust. So their business objective was to provide secure financial services to gain and retain customers. Their data strategy was to monitor transaction patterns and flag anomalies for review. A small business example: a community bank in Perth leveraged real-time transaction analytics to offer perks and discounts at popular local merchants. And they not only, by doing that, enhanced their customer loyalty, they also created a sense of community around the bank in their local community. In the entertainment industry, this is a very interesting example that we have here. So Netflix, if we have used Netflix, I'm sure you have seen, I think it's called recommended for you, or shows you might like from memory. So how do they do that? Why do they do that? So their recommendation system suggests shows and movies based on your viewing habits. But beyond recommendations, they also use this data to decide which shows to produce. They assess viewer patterns, genre preferences, and even episode drop-off rates. And shows like House of Cards were greenlit season after season after season based on the data and insights. Even with the scandals involving the actors, they decided to go ahead with that show because the data said, yep, there is still a great opportunity for this particular TV show. So their business objective was to increase viewer engagement and retain subscription. The data strategy: analyze viewing patterns and preferences to curate content for individual users. Looking at a small business example, a Star Cinema in Adelaide analyzed customer data, especially after COVID and the threat of Netflix. They were not getting enough customers come through their doors. So they identified through data the local movie genre preferences, and they hosted theme movie nights and special screenings to attract large crowds, to bring them back from the red. And finally, transport, again, something we, all of us at some point have used: Uber. So there, Uber analyzes travel data to predict areas of high demand and adjust pricing or driver availability accordingly. Yes, that dreaded Uber price surge is done through data. And beyond predicting demand, Uber also uses that data to enhance driver safety training, optimize route efficiency, and even in certain cities in America, to collaborate with city planners on improving public transport routes based on this trip data. So what was their business objective? Optimize driver allocation and increase profitability. Very simple. The data strategy was monitor real-time ride requests, traffic patterns, and historical data to make predictions. And as we all know, they do that really well. Looking at a small business example, a taxi service, City Ride in Hobart, they were losing customers to rideshare apps. So they harnessed their data to offer dynamic pricing, especially during surge times. They always went lower to make sure they're attracting the right customer, they're attracting customers, and also offering loyalty discounts. And they were able to recapture their user base and also increase their profit margins. So all these examples from other industries show us that any business, big or small, can achieve success by incorporating data into their business strategy. So how do we do that? Let's look at how you can implement some of the concepts we discussed today at your practice. We've got a framework that we call the scanner framework. So we have here scanner that represents scanning business horizons. It's a bit of a play on word as well. And you can start with this today at your practice. First of all, we have S for strategize. So the journey begins with a clear vision. Determine your business strategy to establish a roadmap towards achieving your long-term goals and objectives. It's all about crafting that clear business strategy, which has goals, targets, and timelines. Second, collect. Data collection is foundational. Direct time and resource to process, capture detailed patient and operational information while prioritizing data quality and privacy to create that robust data set for your practice. And the next step is analyze. However you analyze, whether you analyze it through a business intelligence system, or you hand that over to an external analyst, or you use Excel to analyze your data, we need to analyze what we have found. So through analysis, raw data transforms into insights. So we need to equip ourselves with the right tools, as I said, to identify patterns and trends in your data so you can make some proactive decisions. The fourth step for N is narrate. So data narratives drive action. Share the insights with your team. What you find with your data, craft stories around data trends to make informed decisions. So we can, once we know what is happening, what the data tells us, we can tell our teams to change some of the operational behaviors, operational trends at the practice accordingly. And then we have navigate, that is, making those decisions, data-driven insights, adjusting operational decisions, marketing campaigns, and patient care strategies based on the data and the story the data tells you. And then we have evaluate. As we said before, no strategy is static. So evaluation is about measuring the impact, monitoring the changes and how it affects the key performance indicators at your practice, patient satisfaction, revenue, and this feedback loop is crucial for improvement. And finally, repeat. Iteration breeds perfection. So armed with this knowledge of what works, repeat the successful strategies and explore new initiatives for identified challenges. So we talked a lot about data today. So this strategic alignment of business and data is no longer a theoretical concept, but it is a very practical approach that has produced tangible results across various sectors. And dental practices armed with the right data and approach can redefine patient care, streamline operations, and drive growth. Remember, the power of data, when harnessed correctly and ethically, is limitless. So today we see data everywhere, but it's not just about the numbers. It's about the stories they tell, the patterns they reveal, and most importantly, futures they help shape. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our webinar. We'll be very happy to I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Sean. That was fantastic. That was absolutely jam-packed. I know there was a lot in there that is valuable to practices of all sizes. I want to ensure everyone that you will get a recording of the webinar. If you want to go back over any of those slides, any of the content Sean was going through. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat, in the question and answer section down the bottom. We do have one question that's come through the chat, Sean, that we can kick off with. That comes from Tanya. She has said that she's asked the question, what tools do you use to measure data with? Google Analytics or D4W report? Do D4W reports do this? So I guess it's essentially how do we, the question is also asking, I think, how do we get those insights out of the data? What do we use to do that?
Is that the question about what tools do you use to measure the data? Google
That's
Analytics,
right, yeah.
reports, or D4W reports. So if you're using D4W or any practice management for that matter, if you are using then Google Analytics, you can export data from both systems to create that collation. If you're using tracking codes, for example, for particular marketing campaign, you can export those analytics data points into a CSV file or Excel file, and then do the same in your Dental for Windows, your referral information, and then you can create that. I mean, I'm giving some high level information here. You can collate those reports to find that piece of information that you're looking for. With our new product, Centaur, that is something we look into, looking into doing natively, so we can link to Google analytics sources and show you that information within the platform without you having to do the work manually. But for the time being, that is something you can definitely do.
I hope that answers your question, Tanya. If there's, I know Kathy wants some more practical, I guess, advice on how to extract data from D4W. Kathy, we're happy to set up a time to do that one-on-one with you. We have a poll coming up for some further information if anyone wants a call back from one of our teams. So I'll pop that up on screen in a moment. So please do click yes on that and we will get in touch. We have a question that's come through the Q&A. Do we have Open Dental or Eaglesoft in Australia? So we can answer that live if we can. Sean, do you know of Open Dental or Eaglesoft?
Open Dental, I know a version of Open Dental is available through a product called Ultimo. They've rebranded Open Dental in Australia as Ultimo.
Yep. Okay. Is there any more questions for the Q&A? I don't think there is. We'll answer that one live. I think that's it, Sean, for questions. If you can just jump to the next screen of the slide, we'll wrap up. So again, thank you for joining us, everyone. We hope you found it valuable. There was a lot of insight that Sean shared with us on a theoretical level and some really practical examples from 2 dental practices aligning their data and business strategies really effectively. All attendees today will receive an exclusive ebook, the Data Strategy Handbook for Dental Practices. It's a practical guide put together by Sean and myself that is really comprehensive, and it helps those wanting to drive their decision making with data, ensure they're not just collecting the data but actively employing it to improve every aspect of your service and the business. It's not publicly available yet, so everyone in attendance will get this in an email, so check your inbox by the end of the day today. And with that, I'll just thank you again for your time and hope to see you at the next webinar. And thank you, Sean, for your time as well.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.